Do you own a seven-figure practice? You've probably heard me talk a lot about the Seven Figure Practice Club recently. This is a new, amazing program where we are getting together seven-figure practice owners together in a small group of 12 to work together for a year. There's so many things that seven-figure practice owners deal with that they don't have a community to ask questions, learn, and grow from. If you want to apply to be in the Seven Figure Practice Club, head on over to practiceofthepractice.com/club. There, you're going to be able to read all about what the program entails. We're going to be covering all sorts of things in our monthly meetings. We're meeting twice a month. The first meeting is 90 minutes, and we're going to have three 25-minute hot seats for you to dig in and to get questions answered and also to help other seven-figure practice owners. The second meeting of the month is going to be one of our practice owners presenting on something they are knocking out of the park. And it's a chance to really be able to learn, teach, grow from each other in a way that you really don't find anywhere else in the marketplace. Also, in person meetings are so important. And that's why twice a year, we're going to connect once here in Traverse City, Michigan, and then another time somewhere else, yet to be determined. And we're going to connect, we're going to hang out, we're going to talk private practice, but we're also going to have a lot of fun. So if you want to apply for the Seven Figure Practice Club, head on over to practiceofthepractice.com/club and fill out your application today. This is the Practice of the Practice podcast with Joe Sanok, session number 943. I'm Joe Sanok, your host, and welcome to the Practice of the Practice podcast, and welcome to a new year. We obviously record this ahead of time, and so it's always weird to be that far ahead, but oftentimes we're thinking about, goals, and we're thinking about what do we want out of this new year. And I think that's really healthy. And we know that lots of people kind of drop off of, their goals by the end of the month. But right now is the time to think through that. And maybe we can be the ones that don't drop off at the end of the month. I know for myself, I like to find small incremental goals that I can work on to better myself. I remember, oh man, this was probably 15 years ago. I realized that I wasn't flossing as much as my dentist wanted me to. And I said to myself, you know what? Like, I'm going to floss more. And I said, what's the minimum? I said this to my dentist. What's the minimum that I can floss to get better results? And he said, if you just flossed every third day, I'd be happy. And so I set up this little thing in my bathroom where it just had 10 dots. And if by the end of the month, and this was when I was on this like super extreme budget, I was working at community mental health, and for me, going out and paying for a $6 cup of coffee was just ridiculous. So I said to myself, if you floss 10 times this month, you can guilt-free go get the biggest, tastiest drink that you want to get at the coffee shop. And so I set up this ridiculous little motivational system. And so every day I would check off one of those little circles. And if at the end of the month, 10 of them were checked off, I could get a coffee. And if I did it early, flossed every day or every other day, then I got my coffee early. And I still to this day floss. But it helped me think through what was getting in the way of flossing. And for me, one thing was, I hated the kind of stringy floss. And even though I know ecologically, the little floss sticks aren't the best, and the compostable ones, just, I swear, I break them and there's like 6 of them in the trash then. But I said, I'm going to get those floss sticks, and I'm going to put them in a place that I see regularly right next to my toothbrush, like a habit I already have. And then I'm going to do something different with my life, hopefully, and I've applied that, then kind of said, where do I remove the barriers? There's a new medication one of my doctors gave me. And, I put it right by my coffee in the morning. So every morning I see my coffee, which is already a habit, and then I take that medication. And so I'm really excited to just think about how we can level up how we're thinking, how we can think about our mind and our body, and how we can work towards just thriving differently this year. And that's why I'm so excited to have Rebecca Capps on the show. Rebecca is a longtime friend, has been a part of the Practice community forever. And I saw on Instagram recently something she was working on. I'm like, I have to have you back on the show. So Rebecca is a licensed marriage and family therapist specializing in the treatment of eating disorders and body image issues. She's the founder and CEO of Mind Body Thrive, a platform of online programs teaching the art and science of balanced eating without dieting or extreme measures. Rebecca, welcome to the show.
Joe, I'm so happy to be here. I love that you gamified your flossing.
Oh, I feel like that, the more that I can just think through what are things I'm already doing and how do I just add it into that habit train that's already, leaving the station, it just has made it so much easier when I think about new habits as just, something I'm adding on to something I'm already doing.
Amen to that.
Well, let's just start with, people may not know who you are. Maybe they don't follow you on Instagram, but let's talk a little bit about your clinical background and what your practice has looked like. And then I really want to dig into how you've gone beyond that because so many people, as they look at this coming new year, are probably thinking, okay, I have a successful practice. I have a successful group practice. I want to level up in a different way that goes well beyond that. And so I want to spend a lot of our time talking about that. But before we do that, I want to hear a little bit more of your story, just in regards to your clinical background.
Absolutely. So I treat eating disorders, and I would say largely thanks to you, my practice and how I've considered it is, I mean, it's thriving. And I love what I do, and I see the passion that you have, and I equally have that too, but there's only one of me. And it's been hard because obviously I'm trading my time for money. So that's why I considered creating a second business of Mind Body Thrive, where I can create more like programmatic efforts and to create a larger impact more than just my one-on-one work. And it's just been such a privilege. And I also have a mind body wellness column in the Montecito Journal here in Santa Barbara. So those are the kind of two main things that I've been doing lately.
Yeah, well, tell us a little bit about kind of the growth of your practice. How did you think through that when you first got it going? And then we'll dig into kind of going beyond the practice.
Yeah. So before working with you, I was kind of like most people in the early phase of their journey, just trying to throw spaghetti at the wall, hoping something would stick.
Hmm.
And then I realized, okay, I need help. And I got the step by step kind of solution and really niched down, honed my messaging, and kind of created a more permission based marketing strategy where I would be writing, like I had this column, a blog, all these things that by the time that people came to me, they already knew they wanted to work with me, which was really a nice strategy, obviously. I'm proud of what I've built because I've not used any ads, things like that, even though now for the second business, I am considering that because it's kind of a pay to play thing these days. But
Yeah.
it's just, yeah, just a lot of writing and a lot of personal journey work. And working on any limiting beliefs because I really feel like the only limits are the limits that we believe. So if we believe our practice will work out, then we'll see opportunities. Whereas if we believe it won't work, then we'll just see obstacles. And
Hmm.
I really focused on my belief system, not faking it till you make it, but faithing it kind of thing. I think it was JLD. Someone was on your podcast that recently I was listening to, and they were like, I loathe that example of like faking it till you make it. That's not what this is about. You're playing the long game and mastering a craft, and you have to be willing to fail and to just pick yourself back up.
Yeah. You know, those limiting beliefs, what were some times that you can recall as you were building your practice that you had imposter syndrome, you had to really challenge your limiting beliefs, and what did you do to help overcome that?
Great question. Well, I started when I was like in my early 20s. So there was that. Like I was new, I was fresh, and I was trying to like use all the newly acquired theories and just to your point, like I was very much in the imposter syndrome. I'm introverted and things like that. But I just knew that my message and the reason for why I'm doing this work was so much greater than my ego or the imposter syndrome. And I knew that if I continued to almost gamify things, just like your floss, where I have little micro goals and stay consistent, that would get me to where I'm wanting to go, to where I am today, really.
Yeah. Now, I think it's been fun to watch you over the years as you've kind of grown in the way that you brand and really, I would say, step into your uniqueness. I think that's one thing a lot of people have a hard time doing is saying like, what makes me unique in the market? And one thing you do on Instagram really well is you've embraced your belief system. You've embraced kind of really Instagram reels that look very different from other people. What did it take for you to start to just embrace your style in your social media or in your branding or any of that, to stand? And I don't think it was only to stand out. It probably also was just you wanted to be yourself. But like, what did it take to feel like you were okay with being different from other people on Instagram?
I just want to say that that's such a high compliment coming from you. So very much like great, thanks.
Mm,
Gosh, I would say I removed the barriers to love and just any kind of fear that I was having, and just really focused and recalibrated my efforts onto the messaging and what these women needed from me as a guide. And they don't need someone who's perfect or who dresses perfectly and things like that. They need someone who's authentic. So as long as I'm being true to myself, that's of the highest order. And I used to fear that people would think I'm weird. And then I got to like my mid 30s and I'm like, I am weird and I embrace it. And
mhm.
I'm going to double down on that. And that's what makes me different. So, yeah, that would be my answer for that.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think that sometimes there's such a fear around like professionalism and sure, the way you're going to brand your counseling practice might be different than if you're doing something beyond the counseling practice, but still, there's a million practices out there, and if everything looks the same in its professionalism or its style, you're never going to stand out. Now, when did you start to think about growing something kind of beyond the practice, beyond the clinical work?
Oh, well, as I got more full in my practice, I realized there's a cap in my earning potential. And God forbid, what if I get sick? I just started thinking differently. And then I became a mom. So then, as you know, as a parent, like time takes on a whole new meaning. So
Hmm.
I really wanted to focus on an even longer game, a longer impact. And I just really enjoyed business too, is what I've kind of made out of all of this. Like I love serving people and I love business. And I know a lot of early stage clinicians, especially, almost fear taking money, talking about money, business, selling. But I just want to say that like selling what you're gifted at, if you have a real clear message and you're helping people, that's to be of service too. So that's kind of what shifted, and also just my priorities and how I wanted to spend my life. And I mean, I've been offered countless jobs, even just this year, not looking for it for these like big time clinical executive director jobs where probably in like 2017, I would have been thrilled to take. But I knew that I had to be true to myself, and that would just limit my creativity and really where I'm wanting to go. I have a bigger vision.
It's so funny you say that because literally last night I had a dream that I took a job at a nonprofit for some reason. And I remember in the dream being like, wait, now I have to work Fridays and Mondays in addition to Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Like, what am I doing? And it was
That's
this
so
whole like,
funny.
but I need the extra money. So I'm working at this nonprofit. And it was just like, it's funny you say those things that, to be an executive director, be leading an organization,
Right.
just a handful of years ago would have been the dream job. And I think once you get a glimpse of running your own business and having the freedom and autonomy, it's really hard to even consider going back to
Really
some of those
hard.
things.
I joke like now I'm unemployable. Like I can't even consider that.
Yeah, and I think that also for me, just from the entrepreneurial side, realizing that if I'm unhappy with my financial situation, my time situation, whatever, it's up to me to evaluate that and potentially change it. And so when I worked at the community college, we were lucky if we got a 3% raise. And
Hmm.
often our healthcare was going up by 5 to 8%. So every year I worked there, I was making less. And so thinking about, do I think I could grow practice of the practice by 3% next year? Probably. Like, and if not, then I
Hmm.
should have some different conversations. So, so it's just such a shift from feeling like those jobs were quote safe, to really realizing that, to me, if anything, this feels way safer than any job that I was in that could have been cut at any moment.
That's such a true statement because I remember staying on a treatment team for years because they offered health insurance and that was the quote unquote safe thing. But now we make that back in an hour. And,
Right.
so it's just like, you're right. It's a different way of thinking and operating.
Well, take us through as you were launching Mind Body Thrive. Like, what were some of those beginning steps to really move outside of just the clinical practice into something that would go kind of beyond your state, be more national, help people in a different way? What were some of those first steps for you?
Yeah, I had to obviously create an outline and to kind of test the marketplace, do a little research, see if like this there's a demand here because it's clear that there are a lot of like eating disorder clinicians and clinical services if people meet this full diagnostic criteria for an eating disorder. But really the second business that I have is focused more on people who don't meet that full criteria, but nevertheless they are deeply struggling with their body and image and like issues with food. They're just labeling foods as good or bad, off limits, counting calories, tracking macros, just being obsessional. And those people deserve quality care as well.
Mm. Now, I do want to get into some of the clinical things, but I want to kind of dig into your business process first.
Oh,
So,
sure, sure.
so you kind of test the market, you do an outline. Were you thinking through the product that you wanted to launch first, or were you just kind of like building the audience, or like what was the order that you did things in
Yeah,
to
great
start to
question.
grow?
I would say for several years, I built the audience. It's not like huge, but it definitely, I focused on doing my email campaign. I have a women's group on Facebook, a private one, and then just like my social media pages. And that was just about building awareness. I was not asking for anything. I love, I don't know if you're familiar with like Alex Hermosi. I know he looks a certain way, which is amazing because you just don't expect the brilliance that comes out of his mouth, but he's totally brilliant in business. And he talks about just give so much value, and then by the time you have the course or the product, whatever it is that you're selling, like it's a no brainer. So I did focus first and foremost on building that trust, the know, like, and trust factor.
Yeah, I think that's so important to start with, growing that audience and to be able to figure out like what sticks with them, because there's things that
Hmm.
we may, as clinicians, think is going to resonate with people, but it isn't, doesn't. And so to really allow ourselves to take that time to dig in and understand it, is so important. Now, at what point was the audience a large enough size where you said to yourself, like, I'm gonna start evaluating products, I'm gonna start monetizing this? Like, what was the first round of kind of exploring a product, and what did that look like?
I had enough people saying yes, I would purchase that, and I also I had to get out of my like clinical way in terms of like we're taught all of these terms and I call it gobbledygook. So by interviewing all of these clients who were saying yes, yes, I would buy that. They were also talking about the product or what they want, that isn't like trauma informed or intuitive eating, things that I would have normally used as my verbiage in kind of like my marketing. So that was really valuable too, to like interview people and to get the yeses from them. And also, how are they talking about their problems? Because again, from a clinical standpoint, I would talk about it almost from that graduate school lens, and that's a problem as well.
Yeah. Yeah, one thing that we teach in Audience Building Academy and also in Thursday is the New Friday is our 3P process, which some of sounds similar to what you did as well, where we recommend people once they have their audience that they interview them. And the first P is to get people to talk about the pain. So, around
Hmm.
eating disorders or, body image things like, how do you talk about your body? Like, what does that sound like? So you're actually getting copy from them as to how they describe it. Because usually, exactly what you're saying, we get it wrong. We say, that you have this pathological blah blah blah, and then someone says, I look in the mirror and I feel fat even though I'm at my ideal weight, and it's like, oh, okay, like that's way more normal than how
It's
I was
so
saying it.
funny. I know.
Yeah,
It's so true. Often it's like the more, if it's more simple, like focus on that. Like,
totally.
seriously, we make it so much more complicated than it is.
And then the second P we then say is if there was a product that addressed that pain that you just described. So you look in the mirror, you feel fat, but your ideal weight, like would that be a small group? Would that be a course? Would that be like just kind of giving examples and having the audience then tell us? And then the third P is the price. Like what would you pay for that? And so whenever we're launching something, we go through some version of that 3P process because then you're getting the copy from people as to what they want. You're also getting the exact program they're saying they want, and then you're getting the price that they're willing to pay. So it's, to me, I'm hearing a lot of those things that we teach in Audience Building Academy. So then tell us about kind of what have you launched as products within it, and then how are you like adjusting as you go and learning and developing it?
Yeah, so I first did kind of like a beta launch, and a lot of my current clients went through it. And then I recently did a series of webinars and did a formal launch. And
Mm,
I realized, I don't know if you've experienced this, but like launching is a whole thing and it's a lot of buzz, a lot of energy. But I don't want necessarily the model of my business to always be on off launch mode. So I'm still kind of figuring that process out, but I do have the course and I've written actually a couple of books, but I'm still sitting on them. I'm not going to publish until I have kind of the strategy for that. But right now, as it stands, I have the course and I have a few products as well.
mm. Going in network with insurance can be tough. I know when I took insurance, there were long wait times and it was so confusing. Filing all the right paperwork is time consuming and tedious, and even after you're done, it can take months to get credentialed and start seeing clients. That's why Alma makes it easy and financially rewarding to accept insurance. When you join their insurance program, you can get credentialed within 45 days and access enhanced reimbursement rates with major payers. They also handle all of the paperwork from eligibility checks to claims submissions and guarantee payment within 2 weeks of each appointment. Once you've joined Alma's insurance program, you can see clients in your state of licensure, regardless of where you're working from. It's amazing to know that you can be fully online. Learn more about building a thriving practice with Alma at helloalma.com/Joe. That's hello, ALMA.com/Joe to get started. Stop what you're doing just for a second. Take a breath with me. There's so much to do in private practice and so many resources and trainings and things like that to focus on that we've brought it all together for you for a totally free event starting March 11th and going till March 14th. Level Up Week 2024 is coming up, and I want you to save that date. We have some amazing panels we're planning where we're bringing together people that have started a private practice, people that have started a group practice, and people that are rocking out mega group practices. Also, we're going to have some amazing keynotes and some trainings that are on very practical things. There's no need for you to bounce between Facebook groups wondering, is this advice good? What should I do next? I don't even know of the 50 things that I need to be working on what I should do first. Instead, come to Level Up Week. It's totally free. You can be on the early bird list over at practiceofthepractice.com/level up to get all the early notifications for when we open up registration. So again, that's practiceofthepractice.com/level up. Well, let's dig into some of kind of the things that you're teaching within that. So you had said, people thinking about dieting and macros and all those sorts of things. From your point of view, how do we do body image wrong as therapists or even just as the average consumer?
I would say, I mean, there's a lot of noise out there. Like, there was one year I was having to laugh because I read in the same week, eggs are bad for you. You're going to die from them, like too much cholesterol, whatever. And then a couple days later, it was eggs are the best superfood in town. So it's like, wow, it's very confusing. It's hard to sift through the noise of a $1.2 trillion industry, which is the wellness industry. So I think that another thing that maybe people are getting wrong is it's not that it's wrong, but we're focusing only on kind of the behavioral or just here's the recipe guide when really it's so much deeper than that. It's it's really feeling like you have no voice, feeling like this is the only thing that is what makes you valuable. And really, my course is about we start by examining and excavating old beliefs and experiences that led to your dieting ways. It's about reprogramming the mind because I'm an adherent of the A Course in Miracles, and it says an untrained mind can accomplish nothing, and that's in all areas, whether that's business, your eating struggles, anything. I would believe.
Yeah. Now, when you start there, then where do you typically go within the course?
Yeah. So the first module is mind, and then it's like a more of a mind body integration, which is the second module, and it's all about like emotional regulation skills, equipping people with like the essential skills to effectively manage their stress, their anxiety, the undercurrents of what the emotional eating is really all about, and also developing wellness rituals that will help them to personalize their wellness, and to create more balanced and harmonious kind of like a greater connection to their mind and body.
Hmm.
I've recently heard, not to go on too much of a tangent, but like Warren Buffett, of all people, that he was asked, like, what's your number one piece of business advice? And he said to focus first and foremost on your mind and body. And I just loved that. Someone who's just operating at such a high level is prioritizing the mind body wellness, which is a big part of my program. And once people have really clicked into that, and have practiced their mind body wellness routines and uprooted these negative beliefs about themselves, then they advance on to the third module, which is Thrive. Because then that's a fun part to really get to know, well, what do I want to make of my life now that the eating struggles, the negative body image is out of the way? And I love that concept of ikigai. It's like the Japanese philosophy. I don't know if you've heard of it, but
Hmm.
okay, good. Yeah, it translates to like a reason for being. I'm really inspired by that because it's like really looking at what you love, what you're good at, obviously what the world needs, and then what makes you come alive beyond these struggles. So I would say, like, in some, like, what I'm giving people is discovering their own ikigai and to drop the diet, the false promise of a diet, and shooting for the long term in their health and wellness journeys.
Mm. Now, I always love when I have an expert on that I can pick their brain around personal topics. So I'm a single dad, as you know. I have 80+% custody, raising two amazing daughters. I know there's tons of pressure, specifically on females, in regards to body image. If all the dads out there were listening, that are raising daughters, what would you want us to know about body image, about how we talk about food, how I can, the world's going to give them enough shit. How can I avoid having me contribute to that with the expertise you have?
Just the fact that you're asking that question like makes me thrilled, because you're so attuned and aware of just these little beings, and you're wanting them to grow up as well adjusted people, and that's beautiful. So what I would say to that is to lead by example and to adopt a mindful, intuitive approach to eating. So, not labeling things as good or bad, not vilifying things, but also, allowing yourself to have, I call it PFF plus joy, like the protein, fiber, fat, and joy in every meal. And how you talk about your body, how you talk about women's bodies matters. And I would, I always encourage moms, dads, anyone to just, it's less about, oh, you look so beautiful, honey, or anything about their looks. It's, wow, that looks like really creative. And tell me more about that. Like the picture they're drawing, like really doubling down on the things that like their interests and what they value versus just how they look. Um, a lot of TV shows and things like that. There's so many like subliminal messages out there uh, talking about just how women must look a certain way and fit a certain ideal. So you choosing to buck that and know that it's not just about a weight centric model. Like losing weight is not the only goal. It's not like health is multifaceted, and to have that nuanced approach is really important.
Yeah, I remember when I first kind of really started trying to do some of that intuitive eating. The girls and I, we were on this road trip and we were in Yosemite, and I was just sick of like having like food fights with these little kids. And I said, on this trip, like we'll go buy stuff at the grocery store, and you can eat whatever you want, whenever you want. Just listen to your body. and and so we bought some fun things. We bought a lot of healthy things, or like apples,
Mhm,
things like that.
mhm.
And my youngest daughter, this one night, she was just eating so many goldfish, so like three bowls of goldfish, and it was like, you can eat whatever you want, whenever you want. Just listen to your body. And it was a good lesson for me to kind of allow. I don't want to say karma, but to allow things to unfold how they may. And I still
Totally.
remember we're laying in bed. I'm in one bed and the girls are in another. And she's like shaking. And she said, Daddy, I had too many carbs. I'm shaking so
Aw.
much. But it was such a good lesson for her to realize, yeah, three full bowls of goldfish is a lot of goldfish and a lot of carbs.
Totally.
She eats a little bit of goldfish now, but I definitely think it helped her realize that the balanced diet for herself is probably going to just make her feel better if she makes different choices.
Exactly. It's about that interoceptive awareness. But what I love about that story is that you allowed her to come to that. Like you didn't slap like a judgment on it, and you gave her the space to come to you really and to be like, Daddy, that was too many. Those were too many goldfish, like that kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, it's
Funny.
funny because I feel like with younger kids, we have this thing where we're like, be an adventurous eater at each meal. So at least taste something you haven't tried, or do something to be somewhat adventurous.
Yeah.
But my youngest, she's one that if you looked at her monthly eating, you'd say that's a really well balanced child. But there'll be like a day where she just eats apples and peanut butter and does not want to eat anything else, even though she's in third grade. But then the next day she's like, I want edamame. And so I'm sure
Hmm.
it'll equal out at some point, but I've just kind of had to realize her overall diet is balanced,
Hmm. Hmm.
and she's not having any negative things happen with how she feels. So
Which is huge in and of itself.
yeah. Well, Rebecca, the last question that I always ask is, if every private practitioner in the world were listening right now, what would you want them to know?
Yeah, gosh, there's a lot I could say to this, but I'll boil it down to something quite basic. If you're someone who fears failure, repeat this kind of mantra, or subscribe to this ethos that it really is never failure if you just refuse to quit. And knowing that success isn't just about that end result, that booming private practice or whatever the end result is for you. It's about what you learn and who you become along the way.
Mm. So awesome. And Rebecca, I know you have some free giveaways. Also, we want to hear a little bit about your website and where people can follow you more on Instagram and on your website. Where should we send people for all of that?
Yeah, so you can go to mindbodythrive.com and the store's there with all this like fun products and all, my course is there and your listeners can get I know I sent the code like for a 20% off.
Yeah, 20% off,
Uh-huh.
Ambassador 20, all
There we
uppercase.
go. Thank you. And also they can follow along on Instagram, which is where I hang out the most at Rebecca Caps Wellness.
Perfect. And I also want to tell them about over at mindbodythrive.com. You have your 10 amazing smoothie bowl recipes for radiant health. So I am a big
That's
fan of
right.
smoothie bowls, as are my daughters. So one of the
Oh,
best ways to sneak spinach into their diet.
that's right. Seriously.
So, well, Rebecca, thank you so much for being on the Practice of the Practice podcast.
Thanks for having me, Joe.
You know, the amount of people that have successful practices and are leveling up through different training programs, whether that's ours or other people, it's just amazing. I think that when I look at other podcasts, when I look at other people that are creating content, they are looking for experts. The days of the armchair expert, other than Dax Shepard, are pretty much over. There's so many self-proclaimed coaches, experts, wellness professionals that sure they have lived experience and that does have its value. I don't want to just purely throw that out, but also by being someone that's trained, you know, even just looking at what Rebecca is teaching in these units, you know, to us clinicians, it's like, oh yeah, like we learned a lot of that in grad school. We learned that, but then to apply it to the average person, it's mind blowing. I mean, I remember I used to write a parenting article for the local paper, and so many grandmas would cut it out and mail it to their sons and daughters. And it was really basic things like how to make the school morning go easier. You know, get close out the night before, set your expectations for the kids, and monitor your own frustration, something like that. Which to most therapists is like, well, duh. But to the average person, what we know intuitively and through our education and through our lived experiences and our time with clients is mind blowing to most people. And I think that oftentimes as clinicians, we underestimate just how much of an impact we can have if we go beyond our practices to do things like what Rebecca's talking about. So if you're thinking about that this year, in just a few months, we're going to be opening up Audience Building Academy. That's going to open up, we're scheduled to do that in March of 2024. So audiencebuilding.academy, that's going to tell you all about that 6-month program to help you launch your audience, to really get that email course going, to get onto podcasts, to be doing summits and to be doing webinars and to do that audience building so you can position yourself to launch a product. So that's over at audiencebuilding.academy. As well, we couldn't do this show without our sponsors. Today, we have our sponsor, Alma. You know, building a private practice, it can be so challenging. There can be so many things to keep track of around building your caseload, attracting clients that are the right fit. For a lot of my consulting clients, it's navigating insurances. In fact, I just recently was talking to someone who their insurance billing company still hadn't collected on 2022 completely. Which, I mean, it's just crazy. There's so much going on there. And that's why Alma gives clinicians the tools they need to build a thriving practice. When you join their insurance program, you'll get credentialed within 45 days and get access to enhanced reimbursement rates. You can learn more about building a thriving practice over at helloalma.com/Joe. Again, that's helloalma.com/Joe to get started. Thank you so much for letting me into your ears and into your brain. Have a great day. I'll talk to you soon. Special thanks to the band Silence is Sexy for that intro music, and this podcast is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information in regard to the subject matter covered. It is given with the understanding that neither the host, the producers, the publishers, or guests are rendering legal, accounting, clinical, or other professional information. If you want a professional, you should find one.